All right, everyone. I want to thank everybody for joining today, our Service Loop episode on field service and building sustainability internally. And Gabriel, thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to introduce yourself, your career path, and kind of where you are now.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Kat. So my name is Gabriel Gomez. I'm Director of Field Services Americas for Biotage. Biotage is a sample preparation company, different instruments for analyzing, synthesizing, and detecting, materials and samples. And we work anywhere from drug development to environmental testing, uh,
Mhm.
and based out of Sweden. I started my career as a service engineer, um, working for a medical device company out of Ohio called Steris, and then work through the levels of service engineering to service management, and then to senior leadership or senior management, I should say. Uh, Worked anywhere from large companies like Beckman Coulter and Steris to small startups of 120 people globally to now kind of
Mhm.
middle of the road now. Biotage is about 800 people globally. Uh,
Wow,
so here we are now.
quite a journey. So throughout that, talking about sustainability, like what does that mean to you, if you can define that?
Yeah, so to me, building sustainability in a field service organization, really in any organization, is akin to building a legacy. And by that, I
Yeah.
mean building something that isn't dependent on you, right?
Yeah.
Almost working yourself out of a job, so to speak. So it's building structure in place, building things in place where you give most engineers the best chance of being successful, right?
Right.
It's not about targeting the top 20%. It's not about spending time in the bottom 20%. It's about the 80-60% in the middle of engineers. If I can make the structure that works for them, where they're engaged, where they're performing at their best level, then that's a sustainable organization that if I win the lottery tomorrow and walk away, next person can come over, and it's not dependent on me being here and pulling the strings, so to speak.
Yes, I've heard that. I heard you're not running a successful business or you're not doing your job correctly if you can't take time off and things
Yeah,
run smoothly.
yeah.
So I 100% agree with that. What about the middle FSCs or technicians kind of like sets you on fire? What's important about that?
Yeah, I think over the years, being an FSC and working with FSCs, that middle group of engineers, of technicians, is sort of the heart and soul of the organization.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they've been around the longest. They have the most knowledge base combined. They've put in the time. They know their customers the best, right? And so often a part that organizations forget to go back to the FSCs and say, hey, you know your customers, you see them regularly. What's going on with them? What are your tea leaves saying about your customer? Um, that's not to devalue the worth of of your top performers, but generally speaking,
Hmm.
top performers keep moving on and
Right.
start
Right.
building different sort of value, right? So that middle group of those that come in and give you 40 hours a week no matter what,
Yeah.
so much rich information and knowledge, historical knowledge about customers, about organizations, right? That often it just goes untapped.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, you got those top performers. You have those people like are going to do a stellar job. And then you have those people that aren't doing so great. They kind of weed themselves out or something happens along the way. And then you have the engine,
Yeah.
the middle technicians. How do you keep that middle, tech motivated? What programs, what methods do you use to keep them motivated to keep going, right? Because those are usually the people that are just trying to collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
So how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, so I've made it a point to spend time with those with all the engineers, right? And not just a teams meeting, but when possible, go with them to a key customer, go with them to a customer that's having an issue, and just spend that face-to-face time with a service engineer and kind of get their perspective on things. It matters to me that I don't make organizational changes, decisions in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And I think my experience told me that having that face-to-face discussion with the engineer, you build that rapport with them, you understand what drives them, you understand what motivates them. And by the way, it's so many things. Like that middle group of engineers, their motivations are completely different from your top performers. And
Right.
it's generally not the paycheck, it's generally not the promotion. It's they really like what they do, they really like the customers, they really like, being the solution provider for the customers, but they want to do it from 9 to 5 and that's it. Their motivation says, hey, I'm working to spend time with my family, I'm working to save up money for my hobby, right? They're working for a living, they're not living for the job, right?
Right. Right.
So spending that time with them and understand what is that motivation, what is that drives them, right, is very
Yes.
important.
Yeah, getting to know them, understanding what kind of pushes them and drives them, especially on that one-to-one. I hear so many great leaders that I've, interviewed on here before, and same thing, like they like that in person, getting to know their team. And I think that's very like the key to that portion, right?
Yeah.
How do you identify when a tech kind of no longer is a fit for the role? So like when we got those people that are kind of in between the middle, but kind of not doing so great. How do you handle that? How do you identify it and how do you handle it?
Yeah, before we go to that question and going back to visiting the FSCs,
Hmm.
some organizations you have 100 FSCs just in one district, right? So
Right.
visiting every engineer is impossible. I think my recommendation there is, yes, do the one-on-one visits with, as time allows.
Hmm.
But when you go find those engineers, purposely search for those middle of the road engineers, right? In the past,
Yeah.
I've seen leaders, they go, hey, coming to your territory. They talk to a service manager or a service supervisor. I'm coming to your territory. Um, who I'd like to ride with somebody. And
Yeah.
almost to a T, that service manager or that supervisor will say, hey, ride with Cornelius. He's my best engineer, right?
Yeah.
And that's the wrong person to
Right.
spend time with, right?
Yeah.
So be purposeful about those one-on-one visits. Go find those middle of the road engineers
Hmm.
to give you the real mood of the team.
What's really going on? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how do you find those engineers? That maybe are not working out. Over the years, being a service leader, I'd like to think myself as this, very nice person. And
Mhm.
over the years, I end up having firing people, and that doesn't feel very nice at all.
Yeah.
Um, I'd say almost every time where we had to separate from an engineer, it was a relief on that service engineer as well. That person was not having a good time. That person was not invested.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, you know, so so again, one is having those open relationship, open communication with the team, right, where the team is not afraid to come to you with their concerns.
Hmm.
But obviously, the more important one is metrics, right?
Right.
If you set clear metrics for your team and made sure that those metrics are aligned with your strategic goals, and make sure you communicate those metrics with the team and why you're putting those in place and what's the intended outcome.
Yeah.
Because again, I've seen that as well. People put metrics in place and FSCs end up doing the job the way they want to do it and then do it again in order to comply with the metric instead
Right.
of instead of trying to understand the spirit of the metric, right? So the miscommunication making the FSCs just not want to comply or game the system in order to comply. So communicating ahead of time. Now, if you've done all those things, you've communicated, you've made sure that you have this kind of you looked somebody in the eye and said, yes, you understood what the intent of this, and
Hmm.
is this, are you willing to perform to this, right? Um, Then you can start hopefully bringing that person around and have them be a producing engineer, a valuable engineer. The
Yeah.
flip side of that is also true. If you communicated and they said, no, I'm not interested, or no, I can't comply, or no, that's not what I want to do, again, 9 times out of 10, that person is going to say, I guess this is not the job for me. And they end up walking out instead of having to go through the whole process of putting a PIP in place and talking to
Yeah.
HR, and that can last months sometimes. Um, so having that direct communication up front, setting expectations is the biggest or the strongest recommendation I can make.
Yes. I like that. And you mentioning metrics as well. What, from your perspective, because you mentioned two things. You mentioned, metrics being there, and then technicians, just because they want to hit that metric, kind of losing sight of their job or their passion, or vice versa, right? They're
Mhm.
like, we're just not even going to hit the metrics.
Right.
What in your perspective is metrics or telltale signs that the FSCs or technicians are like, you're adding value to what, like, those metrics are adding value to what their position, entails?
Um, I think this is a little bit of, I think it's strategy dependent. So each organization may have different metrics that matter to them, right? So it's a
Hmm.
little bit difficult to answer. I think, however, the metrics that you can pinpoint to employee engagement, or metrics that are driven by FSC input,
Hmm.
if FSC is performing towards those, then that's a good indicator that they're engaged. That's a good indicator they understand the mission. Um, so, I'll give you an example. So, one of the metrics in a role we used to have was um, travel versus labor time,
Yeah.
right? Travel versus labor time from a business management perspective, super important metric. You want to know that you're, again, the value of an FSC is being in front of a customer, not being behind a windshield, right? However, for many engineers, that is not something that they have a whole lot of input on because of their territory, right? They may cover 4, 5, 6 states, right?
Hmm.
So by default, they'll have a lot of windshield time and very little or relatively little FSC time or little customer time. So if you put one metric in place and said, okay, our goal is 60% customer time versus 40% driving, going in, you're making a metric that's unfair
Yeah.
for the FSC. So why would
Right.
the FSC even begin to engage in something that they have zero control over, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
On the other hand, if you put a metric where the FSC has more direct input towards, and it's truly dependent on their skill set, on their customer ability or customer relationship, right? Then, okay, you're trying to incentivize the right things. So one of the ones I really love is service leads, right?
Hmm.
A service lead, hey, do an upgrade, add to contract, relocation, those sort of leads for additional revenue that we don't currently get. To me,
Yeah.
that speaks very directly of an engaged FSC. It's an FSC that believes in what they're selling, what they're doing. It's an
Yeah.
FSC that believes, that we can add value to the customer, and is taking the extra time, or she's taking the extra time to come back, tell us, hey, speak to, ABC Corporation about this new contract or about this upgrade. They're interested in spending money with us. So that's one of those engagement sort of metrics that I really like to have to see how the team is doing.
Yeah. I think that's really smart, playing into both, and then having the input from the team to make sure it's something that they feel is attainable, but still maybe a little bit challenging, right? To keep
Mhm.
them on their
Right,
toes just a little
right,
bit.
right, right, right.
So, Gabriel, what are 2 to 3 things that you would like to share with other leaders or anybody listening that would help their teams in building sustainability?
Yeah, no, number one, listen to the team.
Yep.
I saw a quote I think was attributed to um, I forget actually who was attributed, but anyway, saying, um, I get an idea, I work out the plan, and then move forward, and then, make the team execute.
Hmm.
I don't think people operate that way anymore,
Right.
right? I think
Yeah.
I think it speaks of an older style thinking, brick and mortar sort of style thinking. I think in the current uh, business environment, listening to your team, you know, underst- understanding their perspectives and understanding what motivates them, and then build
Yeah.
sustainability off of that. So again, example right now, we're in the beginning of the quarter or beginning of the fiscal year, and I'm working with my service supervisors to build an incentive plan for 2025.
Yeah.
Right, rather than me dictating down, hey, this is what we're going to pay for incentive. I'm talking to them with, here are my strategies. Here's what matters for the organization. How do we build an incentive plan that incentivizes the FSCs to support this organization, right? And
Hmm.
they know the team better. They spend more time with them than I do, so getting their input, and then at the end of the day, we build something that they can also sell better because they were
Right.
part of building it and part of making it happen.
Absolutely. Again, I like how throughout that you're involving the team, getting their input, making sure it also benefits them.
Yeah.
Well, Gabriel, thank you so much for being a guest here on Service Loop. I'm sure a lot of people are going to walk away with some golden nuggets of information. And I want to thank everybody for joining us.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate the time. It was fun. I'll leave a couple of things for people to follow, which is a couple of books that I've been recommending lately,
Okay.
just to help you, through your process. So one of them is How Not to Be Wrong: The Power of Mathematical Thinking by Jordan Ellenberg. I don't know if you can see, oh, I'm blurred out. But a really, really nice book to help you kind of challenge your own perspective, challenge your own thought process, right? And challenge the questions. And the other one, which really speaks to building sustainability and building a workforce that, that can outlast you, is Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. Um,
Yes, that's a
just
good one. Yeah.
great book to help you build a structure. So,
Love that. So we'll drop those in the comments too.
yeah.
So people, if anybody missed that, we'll put those books that you recommended in there as well. Again, thank you everybody for joining, and thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you so much.